When you hear the word handcrafted, what comes to mind? Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is the physical hand. Hands that take raw material and transform it into a useful object. At Basmala Beads, we believe that there is more to that story. Because behind every two hands is a soul, and that soul is moved by intention. And that intention is profound. It's what makes us who we are. Although modern automation has helped millions by bringing down costs and increasing supply, we believe that there are some objects that should remain in hands that are moved by intention. One of these objects is the tesbih. The tesbih design process is the result of the interplay between artistic freedom and traditional constraint. This seemingly paradoxical process is one of the hallmarks of Islamic art. The designer can be inspired by a range of concepts, places, people, or ideas. He or she then manifests that inspiration through the traditional proportions, symmetry, and harmony of Islamic prayer bead art. The materials are now carefully selected. This selection is guided by the inspiration of the designer, as well as the durability and the workability of the material. The material is then cut into a series of different sized blanks. Each size corresponds to a particular part of the Islamic prayer beads: the long bead or the minaret, the divider, the accents, and of course, the beads themselves. Now comes the most intense phase of the craft: the carving. The craftsman must remain extremely focused in this phase. There are no markers, no guidelines, and no molds. The only thing that guides the craftsman in this phase of the craft is careful coordination between his eyes and hand. This skill takes years to learn and decades to master. This process becomes even more difficult when done at the small scale that is required to craft our signature tesbih bracelets. Now comes one of the most crucial stages of the craft: the boring of the holes. Although it may seem simple, this manual process requires a great deal of skill and focus. If the hole is off just a fraction of a millimeter, the beads will not be perfectly aligned. Just a few misaligned beads can spoil the harmony of the entire set. What makes things even more difficult is that this type of misalignment is almost impossible to detect until the tesbih is actually strung. The craftsman must also take great care to make sure that the hole is the perfect size. If it is too narrow, the thread will not go through correctly, and if it is too wide, the durability of the bead could be compromised. Once the pieces of the Islamic prayer beads are carved, they are now sanded and polished. It is in this phase that the beauty of the natural materials really begins to manifest. The beads are not varnished, but simply polished just enough to bring out the natural characteristics of the material. Now, the craftswoman carefully strings together the freshly carved pieces of the tesbih. The thread she is using is carefully sourced for its durability. This thread is so durable that it's covered by a lifetime guarantee. Not all materials are strung by the same type of thread. In fact, each set must go through a rigorous testing phase to pair it with a thread that can stand the test of time. The craftswoman must be very careful to follow the particular bead count of the set. Although this may seem like a simple matter, the tesbih's main function is to keep count of sacred recitations, and thus there is absolutely no room for error. She then brings the two sides of the thread through the minaret bead. If the hole in the minaret is just a few millimeters too small, she will not be able to bring the thread through. Now comes the tasseling of the tesbih. This particular set is being tasseled with Basmala beads' signature Africana tassels. This style is known for its beauty, durability, and its utility. It is also an extremely difficult and time-consuming craft. The tasseling is done by hand and takes over 2.5 hours to complete. The tesbih is now complete, but it is not yet ready to be shared with the world. It must now be tested to make sure that all phases of the craft were done perfectly. Although every set is unique, the material still needs to be inspected to ensure that it is of the highest quality and finish. The alignment of the beads is carefully verified. The strength of the thread is tested. The durability of the tassels are checked. Now that this set has passed the inspection, it is carefully packed and prepared. After hours of focused work, this set is now ready to be shared. We often wonder to ourselves, who could this set be destined for? We may never meet them, but we know that they will soon receive an item that was crafted by our hands. Hands that are moved with a deep-rooted intention.